Hello, beautiful humans, and thank you so much for joining us today. We are a group of Jay Shetty certified life and success coaches from the inaugural class who have come together with the intention to provide a space for people of color and children of immigrants to share their personal experiences, be seen and feel heard, and to give back to this community through life coaching opportunities. Each episode varies in theme or topic, the coaches involved, and the style, structure, or approach of life coaching. For those of you watching, we hope to demonstrate a sliver of the life coaching process, life coaching tools in action, inspire reflection and learning, and remind you that you are not alone. Enjoy.
Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening for someone. We're bringing today another episode of Coaching and Chill. I'm your host today, Talia from New York. We have Kusum from Seattle. We have Heather from Vancouver. We have Pri from London and Janice from LA. As a recap from of the previous episode, we read a beautiful poem and talked about asking for help and shame associated with it. Heather, Kusum, and Pri were coached and shared their stories and their vulnerability with us. Very open, that we appreciate and hope for more. And if you haven't watched it, please go check, subscribe and like, and and come back here. But if you just want to stick around, that's also fine, because I'm sure that this episode will be valuable and will insightful for all on its own. So before we go into deep coaching, I wanted to ask my beautiful people and my team to share one word or sentence to describe the previous episode. How was it for you, and why you chose that word? So to give you a minute to reflect a little, I'm going to share mine. Last episode was very empowering, and it was empowering because of all of yours vulnerability that you shared. And I mean, I want to highlight especially Kusum's emotions, and she's our rock star. And her sharing was like of her feeling like a burden in the past was incredible, empowering, and I would even say validating. So I'll go now and pass to Pri. On the spot.
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling ready. It's been a good bit of reflection. Last time you girls opened up some doors, and just got me thinking a little bit, albeit I feel like I'm through that part of my life, like still like reflecting on it and hearing it, and then obviously hearing Kusum's story and Heather's story. Like, yeah, it was an emotional start to this coaching and chill thing. You know, this is went deep real quick, but we're ready to go again. I'm ready for you to coach me a little bit more. Let's go.
Oh, thank you for sharing, but I still want to hear that one word.
Oh.
How would you describe the previous episode for you?
Liberating. How about that?
Okay, I like that.
Oh my word, priest. Oh my word.
Okay, because so you have another second to think about the word, and I'll go to Heather.
Hi everyone, just actually to give me another second to think about what I want to say.
Okay, whoever ready, just
go. Yeah, I can.
No. Okay, all right, Kusum, you go.
So picking up where Pri left off, liberating, that's what I was gonna say. But I also want to highlight last week's episode. What it brought for me was basically yes, I've made peace with that part of my life, and I've moved on. It's been decades since that has happened. But just the fact that I'd never really spoken about it at all or even thought about that, just having that place here to talk about that was very liberating. Did it do anything to me after the fact? Not really, nothing really changed. But there's a feeling of feeling light, that you just shared something so personal to you with somebody who understands and who can relate to it, and where there's no judgment, or there is it was basically the word that I would say, because pre-soul liberating is holding space. That is what I was going to say, to sum it up from last week. That's what was missing for me at that point in my life. Pre was mentioning that, he has his neighbor who's there holding space for him whenever he needs that. There's no advice, there's no like, you need to do this or that, but just having somebody who is willing to hear you out, not coming from a place of judgment, not projecting their own opinions and biases onto you. I think that in and of itself is a huge missing piece of the puzzle in what I see around me and what was missing for me back then. So just, if you are going through something like this, or if you know somebody else who is, my biggest recommendation would be, find people who you can just go talk it out with. Can be huge, it can be life changing. And if somebody else is going through that, just be there as a lending ear or somebody to listen to, and leaving all the bias and the judgment, or hey, you should be doing this, I know better than you. Let go of that and just be there to listen to what is happening with the other person.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing and pointing out to that kind of tip and advice. That's definitely something that very valuable. Heather now?
So I think I would reflect on last session as a gift. I messaged Kasum after, and I really felt as though being part of that with her was a huge gift to me, and it allowed me to get to know her a little bit more. So and Pri as well, but especially Kasum, because she is such a strong personality, and she's so strong all the time, and being able to be a part of that connection with her was a really big gift for me. So my word is just that.
Okay, my word is unearthing. I was feeling like there was just a lot of stuff buried or like kept in, and it was a space and an opportunity for that to just sort of rise up so that it could be cleared away.
Wow, I love all of this, and all of these words resonating so much with me. So and I hear, like, I love that some of them, like, even like as pre-mentioned, and Kusuma was like, oh, liberating, that was my word. So it says something when you have same words coming up, and that's truly shows that that's what you we experienced. Pri, you mentioned that you had that we opened the door to something for you, and you opened it for us. We knocked and you opened it for us. So thank you for that. But I do want to ask, what happened after the session? As we coaches, we know that insights and some feelings come up, not necessarily only during the session, but later on after that. So I want to ask, how was that for you, and if any insights, feelings, thoughts came up?
So I'm past that stage, but going over it again, it didn't really do much more but make it a lot more clearer to where I am right now and what I had to go through. And it's probably helped me maybe express that to other people who I know are potentially going through that similar kind of struggle. One thing that came up was this whole concept of being in control. I know I can allow that to consume me and bother me and potentially, like, I don't know, cause me to react badly to situations, or I can turn that switch off and just be fine with the situation and get on with my life and get on with my day. And I don't know, I think what came from that was, I think within the healing process that I've been through in particular, that I have the choice and the powers in my hand to take action. So that's kind of what I've been doing. That's what I've been applying. So probably that, really. Like I said, I'm cool with the situation right now. So we don't need to go into it anymore. But you not want to, you're more than welcome to. But I feel good right now. Like, I'm so chilled and relaxed. So yeah, that's what came from it, to be honest.
I'm happy to hear that we are coaching and chill, and you feel chilled. All good. But we'll get back to you, Kusum. You know, and you mentioned kind of a little bit answering that question before, but I want to take a little different direction of echoing what Heather said, and how people, including us, perceive you as this strong woman, a rock star. And you mentioned in the previous episode that the situation that you shared with us was the starting point of becoming who you are now. I want you to go back a little and reflect. What steps did you take on this journey to be where you are now?
That's a loaded question, Talia.
There's one question. What steps?
That is a loaded question. We can be here for an entire day. But one thing I do want to highlight is that was the starting point. Rather, I would say that was a turning point for me. I was, in a way, always kind of a very strong person and personality. That was kind of how I was, even up until that point. And now that you ask me that question, I think I kind of let go of that personality of mine to an extent when I was in this relationship. Which again goes to say, when you're not your true authentic self, you're not living your true authentic life, it can backfire. And that's exactly what kind of happened. But all in all, when I look back, I think at that point of time, I think I mentioned this during the last episode, that I'd started hating everybody around me, because my trust was a huge thing for me, and that was broken. And I'd started hating everybody. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to go anywhere. And I told myself I can either sulk and just, I even remember telling my parents, I never want to get married. I don't ever talk to me about marriage, blah, 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 whatever. And I was still very young, right? Sounds kind of stupid now that I think about it, but then those were the emotions that were coming up for me, that, I can never trust anyone again. I can never fall in love again. Things like that. But I had to take a different approach, where I don't know where that thought even came to me at that point of time, is that I need to change the environment I'm in. Not that I will go away from my home, but then I need to go into a setting where it is more refreshing for me, where it is fresh, where I can bring in some new perspective, where people who were already part of my life had seen this side, and they already knew what was happening. And because I didn't also kind of get the support, I started hating everybody. So I wanted to be among people who are absolutely new, who I didn't know anything about, who didn't know anything about me. And as hard as it was, I went ahead and convinced my parents. This is very unusual for India back then. People don't work until you graduate from college and get your, full-time job. There was no concept of you go work when you're still in college, right? And I've mentioned this before. My parents are very orthodox and traditional, but I somehow managed to convince them. It took me a long time to convince them, but I was able to tell them that, hey, I'm going to go get a job. I will go to college. I will go get a job, because I need to change where I am. I need to change my setting and environment. And this is the only way that's going to be possible. Yeah. Long story short, I was able to convince them. And once I started meeting people who are not from my own background, people here came from all kinds of backgrounds, and I was able to interact and then get a fresh perspective on life, and kind of try to heal myself through the process of learning from other people's stories, what they've been through, what they've seen, etc. And it's very interesting because during one of my group coaching sessions, something came up and I shared one of my stories with my group. And they actually pointed this out to me that on one side, you're continuing to make mistakes. This was not the end of it, right? That was just the first ever mistake, big mistake that I'd made in my life. But I continue to make mistakes. And they pointed out to me saying that on one side, you continue to make mistakes and, go down that path. On the other side, you're also trying to understand who you really are and what you really want, and you're building yourself up on the other side. So I could have gone either way, and I still, whenever I reflect back on all the things that I've done in my past, I go back and thank my younger self, saying, holy shit, how did you have that presence of mind? How did you think about doing things that were not, something that was accepted or standard? How did you put yourself through all of that? Thank you for doing whatever you did, because if you did not do that, I wouldn't be where I am today, because that girl went through shit back then, and here I am.
Thank you for sharing all this. And I just want to kind of summarize, highlight what I heard. And there are a lot of, as you said, like we can talk about
Holy
it
shit, I need to bring tissues, you guys.
But we can, like you gave already some of great tips and strategies that you applied, and I see even a pattern with Heather, like for the environment part, that you address like where you are, like who you surround yourself with, and what you do with your time, right? And that definitely a great step to changing what's not changing even, but more of aligning with who you are. And yeah, thank you for sharing, and I'll get back to you.
That was a loaded question, Thalia. Thank you for asking that.
Heather, I do have a same question I had for Pri. Like, what was your experience after the session, and what insights or more feelings came up?
Yeah, after the session, I didn't have much self-reflection. It was more of a kind of what I spoke on before about my connection with you all, and understanding that even though our stories are very different, the realization that it took us being vulnerable with ourselves, and kind of what I was reflecting on at the end of the session is that we all just needed to get real with ourselves, get vulnerable with ourselves in order to learn and grow, and understanding that my connection with you guys, you beautiful people, is a continuation of that building on my own vulnerability and allowing myself to become more vulnerable so I can grow and be the better person, and be the best person, the best version of me. So that's probably the main thing. I'm not one to necessarily get vulnerable with people. A product of my childhood, moving around a lot, but now I'm realizing that in order for me to have the connections that I want with people, I need to really open up and let them in.
That's actually very deep, and it is self-reflection that that you made. And I think it's so important that you brought up this ripple effect of vulnerability, right? It's when you see someone being vulnerable, it allows you to be vulnerable.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, knowing that it starts with you. So if you start being vulnerable with, of course, like with precautions, as like with people you trust, and then like it's more like it's magic opens up in that space. Thank you for sharing this one. Janice, do you want to go next?
Oh, sure. Okay, so I didn't know if you had another question.
Janice.
Okay, so I mean, I feel like one of the big themes I heard was independence too, like this coming of your own in all the three different stories that you shared. But since I did watch this thing over again, or that first episode, I just have this burning question. And so it's not really necessarily related to the theme, but it's just kind of an important topic to me, or it really resonated with me. And so I'm just going to bring it up to see how it goes, or like get some insight on it. But it goes back to Pre's story. uh, but honestly, Pri, it's not really about your situation. It's about the context of one of your stories. And it was when you were describing the situation with your ex-girlfriend and you staying on separate couches, and the whole conversation you had with your father about like, well, what do you think we're doing at uni? And or like, you know, his comment like, what are people gonna think? But I know that you have a younger sister. So I think where I'm coming from is just the whole, you know, how is this different? How does this situation play out at home with like your younger sister? Like, are you, because I assume that you take sort of like a big brother father figure role, and she's a grown young woman. I mean, my question is sort of along those lines of, you know, what sort of double standards do you see in your house, if there are any, and how does that come up? That's just like something coming from my own cultural background where I've always had an issue with.
I think it still is an issue, especially out in the UK as well. There's so many double standards when it comes to, I'm gonna say Indian girls. I'm not gonna stereotype and say all Asian girls. I know a lot of Indian girls don't get the same treatment as Indian boys. You know, I got away with so much stuff. Like my first girlfriend I had, I was maybe like 12 or 13, and like I could go on dates and stuff. Whereas like my sister, she never spoke about what she was doing, kind of thing. And she's quite well behaved in that. But with me, I think this has happened through like my growth as a person in general. I've not been a rebel, but I've always said to like my parents, like whatever happens for me, whoever I happen to fall in love with or want to start a life with, like I'm not really taking what you have to say on board with your opinions, etc. And so with my sister, I kind of I use the word hate. I really dislike hypocrites, and I can't put myself in that category. You know, I can't say to myself, yo, I can do whatever I like, and she can't do what she likes. You know, she is a grown up. She's not a kid anymore. And a reminder of this, I'm like, if you've got a boyfriend, if you want to speak about anything, if you want to do certain things, like by all means, like you're not a kid anymore. And I have to look back as well, like my ex-girlfriend's parents probably went through that same thought process too, but they didn't really stand in the way as such. You know, it's something you became comfortable with and you get on with, and then it just happens because what do you want your kid? Your kids aren't going to stay kids for the rest of their lives. Do you understand? So you're going to have to change that up a little. So I think with me personally, I can be the big brother, but I'm also that like, do what you got to do. You know, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to learn from it. And when you want to talk about it, I'm here. And if you don't want to talk about it, that's totally fine. Like you do you, and just know I've got your back regardless. So I'm probably very different. You know, there's quite a few guys that are quite protective and they're like, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it normally comes up. But for me, like, I think growing up with a lot of girls in my life as well, like with loads of cousins and aunties and stuff like that, I've kind of understood that the double standard that comes with it. And I'm not really about that. And yeah, that's me really. That kind of answer it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't even know that I really had a question. I really wanted to just sort of touch on that, you know, idea or that fact for a lot of families, that there is shame or blame around, you know, what, or judgment about what may be going on, like these assumptions, or like, yeah, why why can't you let two young people be in love kind of thing. So yeah, it just really stood out to me I was like, wait a minute.
I'll be honest. They knew what was happening at uni, so it was like, let's not waste anyone's time right now. Like I've got a decent bedroom upstairs. There's no point us like damaging our backs on the sofa. I know they recline and it can get a bit comfortable, but it's not for a long night. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. And I always had a spare bedroom as well, kind of thing. And I was just like to my parents, I was like, look, I'll be honest with you, it's gonna happen at some point. So it's just a case of as and when. And I just thought, fuck it, I'm just gonna go for it. And they didn't really say anything. And then it just became the normal. So yeah. Fuck it. Just live your life,
Well, I mean, maybe Kasum has something to add to that, because I know she had a younger brother. I don't know if you experienced any differences in treatment or expectations, Kasum, but part of me wants to ask about that rebel in you, and where did that sort of show up with those sort of expectations or assumptions that you would remain a delicate flower.
I see you remember the meaning of my name, Janice. Thank you.
Yes, I love it.
I hear what Pri's saying, and I also know where that's coming from, right? Because especially growing up in India, because that's where I grew up, unlike Pri, you see this happen every day in and day out. It's not even something that your parents have to exhibit double standards towards, but you can just be walking down the street and then there'll be 10 guys passing filthy comments, and that's just the norm. So are parents cautious? Absolutely. They want to be obviously make sure that we are, everybody's protected. So that's where that comes from. And double standards as such, I said that my parents were always like, orthodox and traditional. Falling in love was not an option. You get married to somebody. Arranged marriage is the concept that they are very well aware of and they are very okay with, right? But as far as treatment wise goes, like treating me and my brother, they were always, somehow I feel like I was very fortunate, even though I saw that happen even in my immediate surroundings, that girls were getting different treatments compared to boys, or daughters being treated differently than sons. But I was always lucky that my parents always treated us both very equally. And the restrictions came for both of us, not just me or him. But because I was the older sister, I would step up and say that, hey, it's okay for him to go out and hang out. He's fine. He'll do okay. He'll come back, blah, blah, blah. So if he wanted, like, get permission to do anything, he'd come to me and not go to my parents, because I'd be the bad cop and go say, it's okay, he can go, he'll be fine. And step up and just give him that opportunity to go do things that he wanted to, because I trusted him to know what he's doing. But he, in fact, even though he's a younger brother, he was always playing that role of being that protecting big brother, even though he's my younger brother. Like, unlike Pri, where he's like, yeah, you go do, you make your own mistakes, he always came from a place of, oh, my sister should not get hurt. And that's why he got involved in some of the things related to my life, which actually at that point of time I did not like at all. Because of course, even though from his end he was doing it for the good, for me it was like, how dare you do this to me, right? Because again, I was being dumb and stupid, and he was being on the outside. He could see where I was falling and where I was making the mistakes. But I think it totally depends. There is no black and white, right? It depends on the circumstance. And sometimes when you really know, let's say for example, if you have going back to Pri, I love the fact that he has his sister has him to fall back on, to lean on to. And she's very lucky. I hope she knows that, Pri. If not, have her watch this. But it's also, a lot of the times people don't get that support, which is very unfortunate. And that also creates a lot of barriers in their own relationship, because they're not willing to understand what the other person needs, right? That's what I have seen growing up, and to have some support like that in your house is a huge deal.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, theme I heard between both of you was this idea of trust and allowing a person to sort of become their own, but still being able to uh, be that protector or help them set their own boundaries. Heather,
Hi.
do you want? Hi.
Do you want me to speak on the same subject?
I would love for you to.
Well, my experience was very different because I'm the youngest. I have a big brother and I have 2 big sisters. But there's 4 years between me and my brother. So by the time I was the age of teenager, my brother had already moved out, and I actually was living overseas at the time. So I wasn't around my siblings at all. So I was very much, even though I was not an only sibling at the time, that I was kind of going through all that kind of growing up and hormones and that whole situation. I was by myself, so I was doing it on my own. But I think it would have been nice to have someone to kind of have like a big brother like Bree to go to and just be like, hey, what the heck? Just to be on my side. And my sister, who is 8 years older than me, she broke my parents in. She was the wild child that really showed me how not to be in order to stay out of trouble. She was the one sneaking out and had boyfriends at a very young age. I think she started working at a bar before she was even of age to drink. So I watched her from afar going, okay, well, that's how I shouldn't act. That's what I shouldn't do, because my parents were always really struggling with her. So I kind of had her as an opposite role model and what not to do, but I didn't really have any kind of closeness with my siblings until I was probably around 16 when I started living in the same city as my sister. So her and I started to become close at that point again. But at that really like important age of like 13 to 16, I was on my own. And I just had this picture of who my sister was and how she like was crazy and was doing all these crazy things. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing. I love that how not to be, like having role models in that sense too.
Yes.
Like almost like that.
She'd probably cuss me out to say that.
Well, it's like shame in the opposite effect. Like you don't want to experience that, so you kind of kept to yourself. Talia, go for it.
Yep.
I think you got it.
Well, I think like we opened another door to a new theme, and it's interesting how that's what I love about coaching. It's how you can start with one topic and move in a different direction, just like transferring those feelings, emotions, situations, and applying them to in different aspects of life, like that the shame, the burden that we discussed in the previous episode and recapped today and transformed into the how it also represented in your relationship with your siblings, right? And I have an older brother, so I'm like on the Heather side with being the young one. And then I actually lived with him, so I experienced a lot of different things. But like just to I guess like for the purpose of time to sum up today, we we touched again on your vulnerability and how valuable it was for all of us, including being coached and being an observant, and even like as a coach, seeing that was very empowering. We talked I think like all of you gave some tips today. It was like almost less coaching, but more of a mentoring to, like Kusum, her turning point from guilt and shame to vulnerability and being strong as she is now, for changing environment around her, and more tuning in with her authentic self. I think that's like number one. Pri talked about the word that stuck with me, being a hypocrite, and or rather not being one, and how to support, how you can support your family members, and dismantle that double standard that sometimes comes from society, from culture, from external sources. But as Pri mentioned before, you have control of your own actions. Great tip, Pri. And Heather, like how to see something and actually apply it to yourself and say like, well, that doesn't speak to me. I don't want to do it, and I don't want this type of life or experiences. So sometimes like it's just valuable to have that perspective, and feel it's also coming back to you, responsible of your own life, and you have a choice. So that's a great tip. Thank you, everyone. Janice, do you have anything to add for today?
No, not today. Besides, I love you all. Thank you for sharing and just going with the flow on this one, and being able to share your insights with everyone for, I guess, a topic that just was important for me to shed light on.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, and we'll come back next week with another episode of Coaching and Chill. We'll continue with this topic around, but who knows will come up next. So stay tuned and comment on the video if any of the reflections resonated with you. If you have any questions, just drop a line, and we'll be happy to answer. And I just want to share that we look forward to having someone here with us and experience the coaching experience. So you're welcome. We're waiting for you, and see you next week. Bye.
If any part of these sessions resonate with you, please subscribe to this channel, like, comment, or share this episode with someone you think will benefit. We hope you find these sessions valuable, and we are most definitely open to feedback so that we can serve you better and increase